Welcome back to Wellness with Delaney. Today I have Dr. Marley Quinn on the show. She's a chiropractor. She is the queen of hot takes, the queen of wellness faux pas. And today we are going to get into it. Why are women miserable? How to live with your cycle? What are foods that should honestly be canceled in 2025? We're going to get into all this and more. Dr. Marley, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat today.
I am so excited to chat with you. And so, one thing I love about you on Instagram, you really hold no shots back. Like, you are, I really think, like the CEO of a good hot take. And, as I've been deep diving on your page, I've been just like taking note of some of your hottest takes. And I want to dig into them a little more when we don't have like a 90-second or 3-minute, right, time strain on these topics like you can have on Reels. So first of all, let's get into like women in general. Why do you think women in 2025 are so miserable?
Oh my gosh, there's a lot of ways to go with this question. I think if I could pin it on one thing, I think it would be that we have lost what it's been to be feminine. We have lost what it means to be feminine. And in a world where there's hustle culture going on and capitalism and productivity are king, I think that femininity gets lost in that. And femininity is just as powerful as masculinity is, but trying to make a feminine woman masculine, you're going to lose out on all of that power. And I think women are miserable a lot because they're trying to fit in a mold that wasn't made for them. And we're being told that having a career is more important than having a family. And I think it's all about choice for women, whatever they want, but it's really hard to say that women have a choice in it when our society is very obviously going in a certain direction that is promoting career and capitalism and profitability and productivity above everything else.
Absolutely. Yeah. It really turns into a situation where everyone, even if they don't have to grind, feels like they need to grind because there's almost like that like belittling culture. What is the solution then to help women get back in touch with their femininity and kind of like tap back into that energy?
It's definitely a tall order to bring this culture back to women and bring femininity back into our culture. And I think it kind of takes everyone being on the same playing field that women are valuable, but it's okay that women and men have differences biologically and innately, and really celebrating women's strengths. And I think on a more practical level, I think women learning how to be in tune and in touch with their own bodies is so empowering for women. And it's something that I think we've lost. And I think, when I think back to learning about female anatomy in my doctoral program, a lot of it was me thinking, wow, why is this not taught from a very young age? And this is why women are so disempowered, is because they don't know what's going on. And we live in a culture where you're just supposed to push past and push through. And even being a woman and feeling uncomfortable in your own body has now become normalized. Things such as PMS symptoms are now seen as normal. And I remember the first time in chiropractic school when I heard that PMS isn't normal, I even got defensive. I was like, yes, it is normal. Like, this is just what it is. And it took a lot of unprogramming to realize that I've been told things that are common are normal, and they're not normal.
Yeah, let's get into this because with PMS, obviously, I think a lot of women are like, oh, I'm in my luteal phase, if they even understand what that is, right? Like some women just don't even understand, but they'll be like, time to binge eat like ice cream and chocolate and treats and whatever. And I have cramps and my feel moody and all these things. And they just like end up feeling horrible, right? I see this all the time. Like, how do women really just re-engineer their health to make their periods and their luteal phases just like happy and healthy and pain-free?
Yeah, I think the first step is accepting that there is a problem. I guess this is there's whole programs on this, is like admitting that there is a problem and admitting that you want things to change. And more practically, I would say, obviously, I talk about cycle syncing a lot. I think that for me personally, that has been one of the greatest tools and catalysts in my health as a woman, is learning how to flow with each phase. And obviously, when you are in your luteal phase, like, it's okay to feel certain ways, but absolutely dreading your luteal phase and feeling so down in the dumps, those things are are really not normal. And perhaps those things are going on because the rest of your cycle is out of whack, or you're burnt out and you're pushing too hard. And so I think prioritizing listening to your body and learning how to do that is the best way to kind of bring your health back online.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is like this reprogramming. I feel like women really need to like break through the matrix on this one because we've been really taught, and even like you feel horrible, you have these debilitating cramps, but like you still go to work, you still do the same stuff every day. I've heard women be like, "What luteal phase is there?" Like hitting a PR right before their period, and I'm like, "Girl, girl,
Yeah.
stop!" Right? So, how do you practically cycle sync in your own life?
Yeah, it's just kind of become second nature for me. I think like I'll just kind of break it down per phase if that would be
Yeah,
helpful.
I would love that.
Yeah, so I think it's easiest to think about each phase as a season. You know, there's 4 seasons, there's 4 phases. So let's start with follicular because we're in, well, no, wait, let's start with ovulation because we're in the summer right now. And so ovulation is obviously when you're most fertile, you're releasing an egg. If you're trying to conceive, this is the time you want to do it. And the season that it correlates with is summer. And a lot of the principles that we use in summer, like eating cold, refreshing foods, like drinking lemonade and having cold fruits and watermelon and really hydrating, like just as we do in summer, you should be doing during ovulation. And that can really help your body, like eating lighter and eating cooler foods and maybe exercising a bit more. Like it's really nice outside, don't overdo it in the heat, but you can absolutely, go on walks outside, go on runs outside. Like this is a great time to PR instead of during your luteal phase, which is absolutely not the time. And then we shift to our luteal phase. And this is kind of like fall. This is autumn. Like things are kind of starting to slow down and wind down, and we're getting ready for winter. And it's the same thing with your social life and your activity. Like maybe kind of wind down. We start to, nights get a little bit earlier, and so maybe we're not as social, and we're eating nourishing warm foods. Like I feel like soups, like that's also kind of winter but fall too. Like a lots of squash. Like squash is great during your luteal phase. Like these foods that are orange with beta carotene in them are really great during your luteal phase, and such as they're abundant during fall. Like that's what your luteal phase is. And then we go into winter, and this is like when it's the coldest outside. And so this is menstruation. And so staying inside and kind of putting your social life on the back burner while you're just going internal and you're releasing. And this is when New Year's happens during the winter. So it's kind of like resetting and regrounding, and you're menstruating. So the cycle is starting over. And again, eating those warm foods, and hot chocolate is a winter thing, but it's also a menstruation thing. Like we need that magnesium, we need iron and nutrients from our food. And so really prioritizing those types of food. And this is when Thanksgiving happens. This is when Christmas happens. And so definitely prioritizing those like meaty foods and getting those minerals back is going to be really beneficial for your health. And then moving into follicular phase, which is springtime. Again, things are starting to wind back up. Now we're going outside more, like we're more social, we're more talkative, we're getting ready for summer. And again, we're eating, lighter foods, cooling foods, foods that are really going to help us maximize who we are, like getting ready for summer. And that's the time people are like, okay, I'm really gonna kick my fitness into shape. People summer shred, which that's a whole other like toxic thing. But in your follicular phase, like that's really the time like to get out in the gym and like do those harder workouts and do those HIIT workouts and take advantage of where your hormone levels are at during that time. So hopefully that wasn't too long. That was a
No, I
lot.
love it. That's perfect. I love that visual because it can be really hard to try to break it down for people. But I think when you really paint it as like the seasons and the year, that's something people can grasp onto. And I think it's really beautiful too because it's so accurate. Like the way your energy levels like slowly begin to rise during follicular, kind of like in the summer, like, or in the spring, right? You're slowly getting warmer, slowly kind of coming out of hibernation. Like I love these visuals so much. So for somebody, let's say somebody right now is experiencing like horrible hormonal acne, either it's like around ovulation or before their period. What does this mean hormonally?
Their hormones, I mean, I would always recommend getting a Dutch test or getting, a blood panel to see where your hormones are at. But if you are experiencing adverse symptoms around menstruation or because of your menstrual cycle, that is a clear indicator that something is going on with your hormones. And so it could be high or low levels of anything. Like we've got a lot going on: luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. Like these are all things that we need to know and track. I think estrogen dominance is being talked a lot about right now, and especially in the age where, a lot of women have been on hormonal birth control. Like there's a lot of things going on, even if you're not on birth control anymore, that are going on with your hormones. And so these symptoms are, again, common, but not normal. And so I think really, whether it's cycle syncing, which is a great way to kind of bring your hormones back into balance, or just doing things, if you have actual data from a Dutch test, to realize like, okay, if you're dealing with estrogen dominance, raw carrot salads are like the talk of the town now to help with estrogen dominance, or any foods that have soluble fiber or psyllium husk would be great to help with bind extra hormones that are happening in your body. So I think, it's a tough question to answer because it's a case by case thing, but really figuring out, and it's great that we have ChatGPT, because just asking like, okay, these are my symptoms, like how can I support my hormones through these things?
Yeah, absolutely. I even heard of, I don't know if you know like Health Illy. I feel like everyone knows of her, but she like submitted her like blood panels to ChatGPT and was like, why am I struggling with fertility? And it was like, oh, you're leptin sensitive. It like looked through all the numbers in a way that like her doctor even had. And I was like, wait, that's kind of genius. Next time I get my blood work done, I kind of want to just run it through and be like, what's up? What's up, chat? Which
Right.
it's kind of just interesting to see if anything does get missed. Okay, so kind of on the vein of hormone health in general, I think you would obviously know that we are seeing massive declines in fertility, male and female. We're seeing testosterone rates just plummeting. We're seeing women just having really hard time getting pregnant in today's day and age. What do you think are some of the common culprits for this epidemic of fertility?
Yeah, I mean, okay, these are going to be some hot takes naturally.
Type in
And
hot.
I have to preface it with like fertility is a very sensitive issue. So trying to keep that in mind, like I'm going to answer this as best as possible, but also I think like it's really important to be honest about what's going on. So first of all, I'm not exactly sure how long IVF has been around, but it has been around at least now for like one completed generation. People that are my parents' age were trying to use IVF. So, and I think it's been around a bit longer. And so I think, first of all, something that is not talked about is if you cannot conceive naturally and then you produce offspring, you are more likely to then produce offspring that will be dealing with the same health issues. And so this is not to say don't do IVF, but I think it's not really talked about a lot that we're now living in a generation where a lot of the offspring have been produced through IVF. So it's going to make more sense that those traits are going to keep being replicated within our population. So that's definitely one of the things that is contributing. Second of all, I think women living in a hyper masculine culture is contributing to fertility. If your body is stressed, there's no way you can conceive healthily. And maybe, like people are like, oh, well, then why is it so easy to get pregnant if you're like in college, drunk and like doing all the terrible health things in college, and why is that so easy? But I think that's a little bit of like confirmation bias. And obviously statistics show we are more infertile than we've ever been. And so I think a big contribution to that is the way that women are living. And high cortisol absolutely impacts health. And the body is so intelligent that it's not going to really want to bring a new life into this world if you are on edge all the time and if you are stressed all the time. So I think stress and the way women are living is a huge problem as well. Now, if we turn over to men, which is just as important in this whole infertility issue, I think, we're seeing testosterone drop crazy amounts in this generation, compared to women or men in their 70s and 80s are having higher testosterone than young men today. I think that is a real issue. I could list a few things that I think are culprits. Obviously, I think porn addictions are a huge culprit in fertility because if you're constantly releasing your life force all the time, I think that is going to drop your fertility. And I think there's plenty of studies on this. Carnivore Aurelius talks about this a lot. I see him post about it. I'm not super familiar with all of these studies, but I do think any sort of how do I say this? I think that there's a lot, this is a sensitive topic, but I think that there's a lot going on with like hyper masculine women and then feminized men. And a feminized man is not going to be a vital or a fertile man. That's just the reality. And unfortunately, I think like a lot of men are getting beaten down and don't know how to be masculine. And your body listens to that, and your testosterone levels are going to reflect that, and your fertility is going to absolutely reflect that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so like with the masculinization of women and the feminization of men, do you think this is more, and maybe it's both, but like I'm curious what you think. Like, is it more of like a social dynamic issue, or is it like a physiological issue when it comes to like atrazine and pesticides? Like, what do you think is the main culprit here?
Oh my gosh. I think as a holistic doctor, I have to take a holistic stance in that I think it's both. I think it's
Mhm.
the whole situation. Like, I don't know what came first, the chicken or the egg, but both of it is feeding into each other. Like the toxins that we have in our water supply and all the chemicals that we are constantly exposed to and the endocrine disruptors absolutely are contributing. And then also socially, I'm not sure if that came first or last, but that also is contributing and feeding into this cycle for men.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a multifaceted issue. And, and I feel like it can be sensitive because you say something and then people automatically are like, oh, you're just super like bigoted. And it's like, I mean, it's stating a fact does not make me a bigot. Stating that atrazine might be feminizing men because it made all the frogs gay is not me being bigoted. It's just science. Like, it's super
Right.
frustrating. It's super frustrating, but everything is so charged nowadays. And like my goal is always be like, okay, well, like what's the actual truth? I mean, if people get mad, whatever. Okay, so then on this kind of on this vein as well, you posted that you think hospital births are dangerous. Can you share a little bit about your take on birthing, where it should be done, and why?
Yes. Okay. So I think birthing should be done wherever mom thinks it should be done. And I think mom is told a lot of things by family members, by doctors, and they're listening to these other people's opinions instead of what they feel is right for them and themselves. And I think an educated woman is an empowered woman. So wherever she is most comfortable giving birth, that is where she should give birth. As for me and my stance, if you watch, I think it's a documentary called The Business of Birthing You. That's a great one to watch if you're an expecting mother or if you're interested in birthing at all. It's very eye-opening to learn how the medical intervention cascade during birth happens and how it can negatively impact your birthing experience. Being in this field and working with patients one-on-one, I just have heard so many horror stories of women giving birth in the hospital. And it seems like a lot of this could have maybe been avoided if they weren't in that environment. At the very least, if you're giving birth in a hospital, I don't think you should give birth on your back. And I had a mentor, Dr. Jen Santos in chiropractic school. She would always say, imagine taking the biggest of your life lying on your back.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Like you just wouldn't. Like you need to be sitting up. Like you need to use gravity. And so it's just like, how do we expect women to birth an 8-pound, sometimes 10-pound baby lying on their back?
It's true. Gravity is real. Wait, have you heard? Is it Louis the 14th? Is that the one that was like this all started because he's actually just a perv? Like, is that true?
Yes, that is true. I mean, that is what I learned in school. We talked about
Wow.
it in our OB-GYN class. Yeah, this king, he might have been the 8th, the 4th, the 14th. I don't know.
One of the Louis.
Yeah, one of King Louis, yeah, had a fetish with watching his wives and mistresses give birth. And that's why women now give birth in the lithotomy position, is what it's called, lying on your back. And it is now obviously more convenient for doctors if the mom is lying on their back. It's just like a good view for the doctor. And I just think it's ridiculous that hospitals do prioritize the doctors over the mothers. Like
Mm-hmm.
it is a business. They're trying to get you out of the room as quickly as possible. And I think anyone telling you to push during birth, fire them. They don't know what they're talking about. Like, your body contracts naturally, and if they're counting down, you need to push for 10 seconds. Like, that is not right. Your body knows what to do, and they're just trying to get you to push to get the baby out as quickly as possible, get a new room, and it's just pathetic.
Yeah, I mean, it is crazy because like people have been squatting in fields since the beginning of time, right? And now birth has become such a business. And there's always these little checks that go off my head. I'm like, I mean, women have been doing this since like literally ancient times. Why are there so many rules? Do you think that birthing on the back is contributing to like the increase in C-sections we're seeing as well?
Absolutely. The whole thing. Yeah. Pretty much any medical hospital intervention is contributing. I mean, if you give birth in a hospital, I think you're 4 times more likely to end up having a C-section or some crazy number, right? Don't quote me on that, but it's some crazy number. And so I think empowering women by telling them these stats and really educating them and letting them decide. And listen, like, don't get me wrong, like, we live in an amazing time where if you're trying to have a home birth and something is really not going right, like, you have access to a hospital, and that is amazing. Like, when necessary, like, it's such a blessing that we have access to this, but it's become over medicalized. It's really gone past this line of being a natural process, and now it's just a, capitalistic business.
Mm-hmm. Then what are your thoughts on the vitamin K shot for newborns?
Yeah, I think it's overkill. What they take the baby away from mom, and there's all sorts of things they do. And they put drops in their eyes so that the baby doesn't get, an STD or some. It's just too much. They take the baby away from mama, and that's like the most important time for baby to be with mama. Like, they've been inside of this person for 9 months, and it's all they've known, and now they're under fluorescent lights getting things injected into them, like, not with anyone familiar at all. And it's just wreaking havoc on the generations that are birthed in hospitals.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and I didn't even mean to go down this rabbit hole of like pregnancy and birth, but I'm like, this is so fascinating. And I know obviously you're a chiropractor. Like, how can chiropractic impact pregnancy and labor?
Yeah, I would recommend, if you have a trusted chiropractor, bring them to your birth, especially if you have a forceps baby or if you have a baby that undergoes a C-section. It can be really beneficial to have a chiropractor there that can do cranial work on the baby, because obviously when babies are born, their cranial bones are not fully sutured yet, and they're a bit malleable. And any interruptions in the natural birthing process can negatively impact baby's cranium. When you're pushed through the vaginal canal, when you're being birthed, like, that does help shape your head. And if you don't have that because you're a forceps baby or you're a C-section baby, that can, obviously impact your neurology. Like, that is where all of your neurology originates. And I'm not going to say that it's necessarily tied to the mental health crisis that we're seeing, but it just makes sense cerebrally that, from the day you're born, if your neurology is impacted negatively, you need to have a trusted practitioner there that can help that. And unfortunately, neurologists in hospitals don't have tactile work in the way that chiropractors do, or a craniosacral therapist does, where they have experience helping shift your neurology and cranium back into place.
That's so fascinating. Yeah, I interviewed a chiropractor like last year, and she was like, literally, if you can get adjusted within like a couple hours of birth, that's amazing. I'm like, I didn't even know this was possible. This is incredible. She does like house visits for moms. I'm like, this is amazing. And when it's time for me, can you like move here? So no, I think that's really cool. And it's really amazing to see how many resources are available. I think a lot of women just don't even like understand what's available to them. And that's like, there's so much power in knowledge and power in education. Like you were even saying before, like, how can a woman make a decision on what she wants to do if she doesn't have all the options available to her? So it's super important. So kind of like shifting into diet. I know you are an ex-vegan. I'm an ex-vegan. And that's part of what I was like, oh, okay, we have that in common. I have to see what she's about. What's your story? Like, how did you become vegan and how did you change your mind?
Okay, this is a great question. I love talking about this. I became a vegan in high school. I feel like diet culture kind of got a hold on me at a very young age. Like, from 12 years old, I was kind of like weighing out my food, like counting macros. I mean, thankfully I didn't have any sort of robust eating disorder, but you know, I tried all sorts of things. I tried keto, paleo, carb cycling. Like I just tried everything under the sun because I was fascinated by it. And I eventually came to veganism and tried that out. And for context, I grew up in the Midwest, kind of not in an exact like food desert, but the type of meat and produce that you get in the Midwest if you're in like a small Midwestern town is definitely a lot lower quality than, you know, I've been living in California for the past 4 years, and you have like the highest quality of everything at your fingertips all the time. And so I became a vegan because I started kind of getting grossed out by meat. Like I had watched, I think it was Food Inc. or something like that. And I learned about factory farming, and that's all the meat that I had access to. So at the time, it kind of made sense to be vegan, at least for me, because I was like, I don't want to eat factory farm meat. Like I don't want any part of that. And I also thought that it was good for my health. I think that was kind of right around the time that Forks Over Knives came out and Game Changers. I don't know if you watched the Game Changers
Yeah, that
documentary.
was in the midst of me being vegan, and I felt so like I would be emotional about it. It was ridiculous. I would like cry being like, people be vegan. It was so bad.
Yeah, same. Yeah,
So
I felt so validated by Game Changers, and you know, the more I eventually like thought about it critically, it's like, okay, well they're comparing like non-vegan junk food to like vegan food. Like if you compare
yeah.
junk food to any category of food, like you're probably going to win. So yeah, and so my family, they all became vegan as well. It was just like it was a super easy thing for me to do. Like we all just kind of got like swept up in that hurricane of veganism. And I was vegan pretty much all throughout college, at least vegetarian. And in chiropractic school, I had this roommate who she, you know, I thank God for her because she just really would not let the veganism thing go. Like she was eating raw liver, like she was drinking raw milk, and
She was ahead of her time.
she was
Wow.
way ahead of, yes, I learned a lot from her. And she she just would not let it go. I mean, almost to a fault. But eventually I was like, okay, like I'll just try your meat. Like I'll just try it out. And this was right around the time where I was realizing like, okay, seed oils are not, they're not good. And like I'm realizing, oh wait, I'm vegan. Like that's like kind of all I'm eating all the time for every meal. Um, and so I slowly just like kind of titrated it back in. Like it just was like I jumped right back in, and I've never felt better. You know, it took a long time to really like kind of feel the benefits of adding red meat back in, but over time, like it wasn't just not being a vegan anymore. It was like eating whole single ingredient high quality foods that really made the difference. And I get it, like my family is still vegan, but I really push them to like eat organic, eat local, eat in season, like eat single ingredient foods. If you really feel like veganism is the way to go, like be healthy about it. And my version of health just happens to include animal products because that's how I feel the best. And yeah, I haven't looked back since.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible that shift. Like, I don't know if you like even have like pictures from when you're vegan to now, if you see much of a difference, but I know like I've like showed people the pictures when I was vegan. They're like, you straight up do not look like the same person. Like, I was more pale, I was gaunt, I had acne. It's like hard to explain, but I feel like I look like my ugly cousin when I was vegan. Like,
No,
it's
that is exactly it. Like when I look back on photos in that time of my life, you're right. Like I had acne, I was pale, like I was bloated all the time. Yeah, I looked like, yeah, the ugly cousin for sure.
like they looked related, but
Yeah,
not
yeah.
quite the same person. It's pretty crazy. And so for you now, being on more of like an ancestral, like holistic diet, what does a typical day of eating look like for you?
I would say not every day is the same. Like it's hard to say typical. But I would say if I were to give my most eaten meals, I would say for breakfast it's usually three pasture raised eggs, two or three, and then maybe a side of avocado and maybe a side of sourdough toast with raw butter on it.
Yeah.
For lunch, honestly, this is kind of a hot take, but I'm a big like 2 meal a day sort of person and like maybe a small snack in between. So usually I'll have like some leftovers from the dinner before, which is usually just like I'll hit it hard with the protein. I really try to focus on protein at every single meal. I look and feel my best when I focus on that. And then for dinner, I'll do some sort of red meat. I do eat a lot of red meat, probably like at least half a pound a day. Whether that's ground beef or half of like a ribeye or a New York strip. And then usually a side of fruit or a sweet potato, depending on where I'm at in my cycle. If I'm in like the back half of my cycle, I'm more like carb heavy, and if I'm in the front half, like fruit and lighter foods are my go-to. And then I always have a sweet treat. Obviously, they're just life is short. So I'm either having like a sourdough cookie, or I'll have like a protein smoothie with Lineage chocolate protein and a frozen banana and some raw milk and peanut butter. That one came from my friend Aubrey. And it just changed my life. Like, it's so good, protein packed. So that's about it on a typical day.
I love that. That sounds amazing. And yeah, I like your approach where it's balanced, but it's like that's what I don't think people understand. Like, you can have sweet treats literally every day without eating something that's literally poison. And it's that paradigm shift when people are like one thing about me is I hate the all foods fit mentality, but I'm like, no, all like food groups, if you think about like dessert can fit into a diet. Just like there's a difference between a homemade sourdough cookie or like I love to like Ninja Creamy with raw milk and like raw honey, whatever, right? That is just not the same thing as an Oreo. Like, it's just, we're not comparing the same foods here.
No,
so
absolutely.
With all of that, what would you say? Okay, if there is one food that you could outlaw or one ingredient that you could outlaw, what would it be and why?
Oh my gosh, this is a hard question because there's so many that I would outlaw.
You can list more than one if you need to.
Well, I mean, like, obviously, let's just get all the fake stuff out of the way. Like natural flavors, artificial flavors, food dyes, carrageenan, like all of that out of the way. I would have to say, obviously, seed oils. Like, they're not doing anyone any good. They're highly refined, highly processed. They destabilize the fat cells, all of the cells in your body, and they're highly inflammatory. So seed oils, I think I have to go with that.
Yeah. Okay. Did you notice when you cut out seed oils that you're not like sunburning as easily?
Yes, absolutely. Like, it's just crazy. And I had been visiting Costa Rica for quite a while, and like that's basically right on the equator. And I never wore sunscreen and I never burned. Like, I was more exposed to sun than I ever had been in my life. But I think because I cut out seed oils, like my skin is just so integritous.
It's crazy. I remember the first time I heard the seed oils about my sister. This was like she was ancestral and I was still vegan. And she sent me some podcast on PUFAs. And I'm like, what is this about? And it was all about skin cancer and sunburn and how your diet can be like the best sunscreen that you'll like ever consume, right? And I was like, this is so interesting, but my whole diet is like sunflower oil and whatever at the time. But like, even looking now, like I'm a natural redhead and this is my natural tan. Like, nobody thinks that's possible, but I'm like, I swear when I cut out seed oils, my skin was just like drinking up the sun and never burns. And so I definitely feel like it makes a huge difference, and people like never believe it until they get on that butter and tallow trend, that their skin just like suddenly loves the sun. So it's interesting to hear like other people have that same opinion. Okay, carrageenan, what is it and why is it so bad for you?
I don't even know. No, it's so bad. I don't even know. Like, I just know that that's not real. And I had a friend, at Ice Cream for Bears, like he just talked about how a lot of ice creams have that in it. And he's like, it's crazy. He's like, I went into Walmart and I was like, where can I buy your carrageenan? I'm trying to make some ice cream, and all that to say, like, you would never put that in your food. Like, I've never seen it on the shelf. I don't know what it is. I think it's a powder, a thickener, a stabilizer, but any of those gums and stabilizers, like, real food doesn't need to be stabilized. That's just facts.
Yeah, okay, Ice Cream for Bears also bustin'. It's so good. It's second to like, hey, I like it raw is the best ice cream. Ice Cream for Bears to me is the second best, only because it's not raw, but as far as like store bought, I think it's the best you can buy. It is delicious. It's literally so healthy. Like, it's crazy. And you're friends with the founder there?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, they're amazing. And I would say I was going to include that on my typical day of eating. Like, if I have Ice Cream for Bears in the house, I'm for sure like having at least a couple of spoonfuls. But it really is like, and that's to go back to your point of like, desserts don't have to be trash. Like, Ice cream for bears to me is a health food. Like they are the highest quality ice cream that you can buy in stores, and they do a really good job of sourcing their dairy, and it's just dairy, eggs, and honey. Like those are all, in my opinion, superfoods, you know?
Mm-hmm. Literally. And then you can eat it like for a meal because your body's not going to react the same way to honey. Like I literally just ate Ninja Creamy like cottage cheese ice cream for lunch. And I was like, because it was like honey and cottage cheese and some cacao. I'm like, this is fine. Like I love this. It's amazing because then you can start eating ice cream for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So you
Yeah.
mentioned you're a raw milk girl. Can you tell me a bit about, I know obviously raw milk is like still a controversial topic in 2025. Why is it a staple for you?
I think any food in its raw form is pretty much a staple for me. I would say raw milk is such a staple well, it's just so versatile. First of all, like, you can make smoothies out of it. You can drink it like raw cheese. You can put on anything. I'm obsessed with raw cheese. Reggiano is amazing. Um, and I think it's just such a staple because in a world where everything is ultra processed, like when you're drinking raw milk, like that it has not been homogenized, it has not been pasteurized, like it has the full nutrient profile that frankly God intended. And that's the only type of food I'm really interested in eating.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and I don't want to get you in trouble, so I'm going to say if this were your own life, I'm not going to say what you're advising 'cause I don't want to get in trouble, but if this were your own life and you were pregnant, would you consume raw dairy?
Yes.
Okay, why?
If I knew the farmers and if I knew where it was coming from.
Hmm.
There's well, I think you did a podcast at Breezy Hill Farm.
I
I
did.
know the people running the farm. I have milked the cows myself. I have seen their practices. And they have like a relatively small farm too. So I think like the care and attention to detail that they're able to give to their raw milk, is just, it's superior to any food that you're buying from a big box grocery store. So yeah, if it was my life and I knew where the raw milk was coming from, I absolutely would drink it.
Yeah, okay. That's where like I was leaning there as well, but I'm like nobody I feel like nobody's really discussing this. I've heard one other person talk about like giving like a birth worker talking about giving her clients like expecting moms raw milk, but I'm like I feel like when you're holistic and you're talking about pregnancy and fertility, like there's not a lot of information out there just like when you're just scrolling the internet. Even with that, what about like runny yolk eggs? Would you eat those?
Yes. I didn't even know that was questionable, to be
Oh,
honest.
yeah, I've heard runny yolk eggs. I've heard you have to do your steaks well done. I'm like, I can't do that. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, I to be honest, like I would seriously be more fearful of romaine lettuce, to be
Yeah.
honest. And when you look at the stats, I mean, it's just, romaine lettuce like blows raw milk out of the water in terms of what is safe to eat, and it's not as safe to eat, and we know that. And also, I would say Lauren Bostick of The Skin and Confidential, when she was pregnant with her third baby, she did say that she would drink raw milk on her pregnancy, and I think like she talked about it a lot, and I know she is hiring the best of the best when it comes to healthcare practitioners. So not that you should take medical advice from people on the internet, because you shouldn't, but it was refreshing to hear that there are medical practitioners that do give the green light for that, and I think that's really comforting.
Yeah, it is really good to know. And I guess, yeah, a lot of that does come down from knowing your sourcing and knowing your farm, visiting your farm. I'm a huge fan of like go shake hands with your farmers. I think that's the best thing you can do. Go milk the cows. I got to milk the cows at Breezy and it was like literally the most insane. It was so emotional. I'm like, this is so like beautiful just
Yeah.
being around that. And yeah, it's pretty incredible when you connect with your food. You realize like it's not just like a matter of going to the store and picking up something in a package. Like I think it's really important to understand the source. Okay, shifting gears into another thing that you have talked a little bit about, Botox, but I'm going to expand that into Botox and filler. I have been for years a really big advocate against Botox and filler, and I've gotten in a lot of trouble. And I'm not a doctor, but I've gotten in a lot of trouble with other people. So, as a doctor, what is your take on Botox and filler?
Yeah. So Botox is botulinum toxin. So it is a neurotoxin. That is how it works. And I think we're starting to see a lot of people get like Botox poisoning. I have friends that are chiropractors that have seen it in the field. And I think Ariel I can forget what her podcast is, but she talks about it a lot. She got Botox poisoning, and it's starting to happen. And I think the scary thing when it comes to Botox is I just really want to see transparency. And unfortunately, like a lot of things that are pharma related, we're not actually seeing a ton of transparency. And so for me, like already on that front, it's like, okay, they're not being transparent about the side effects and the potential risks of that. So at the bare minimum, like this is not something I would put in my body because it's hard to know what the truth is and what the real risks are, and they're not being honest about that. And it's the same thing with filler. Like, I am just not a fan of putting anything foreign into your body. I'm a Jesus girl, so I think God created our bodies perfectly, and to put foreign objects that you don't need in your body just makes no sense. And we're seeing this with breast implants as well, like breast implant illness, and your body creates a scar tissue capsule around the breast implant, and your body only creates scar tissue around things that it's trying to protect you from. And so that's just like God's way, or at the very least your body's way of saying like this isn't meant to be in your body. And I would say also kind of shifting gears on that topic, like I think Botox and filler are really preying on femininity, because femininity is inner radiance and beauty and confidence in what you look like and who you are, and understanding that beauty is something that comes from within you and it's not exogenous. And we're living in a culture where now we're telling women that beauty is exogenous and you need to keep up with the Joneses and you need to look like this, and there's only one way to look feminine, or there's only one way to look beautiful. And it's just so destructive. And that alone, like whether it's safe or not, is just it's not mentally safe. I think to live in a body that you're not in peace in, and that you don't think is beautiful and that you can't appreciate is, this is a hot take, but like that is mental illness if you can't accept who you are.
Absolutely. And it's like there's that line of, obviously, let's say you're 30 pounds overweight and you want to lose weight, but like you can still love yourself in the moment, right? Like, so how do people set goals that might affect their appearance, whether it's like, acne, weight, whatever it is, from a place of love rather than a place of like self-hatred?
Definitely. Yeah. I think the quote, like, you can never hate yourself into a body you love, is so true. And I think maybe it's about shifting your focus from a number on a scale to just a way that you feel. And it's okay to want to look good, right? Like there's a difference between like wanting to look good and right, because that can help with your self-confidence, and like it shows that you care about yourself and it shows that you love yourself. And even my spiritual mentors are like, yeah, when you get up, like you should wash your face and brush your teeth, like you should you should start your day by like being presentable. And it says that in the Bible. I think like Leviticus talks about, don't have unkempt hair. That's cause for I guess not being alive, but we don't believe that anymore. But I think there is something to be said about like having high self-esteem and being presentable to the world, versus it coming from a place of feeling like you're not enough. And I think just shifting your perspective to like, it's okay to want to be healthy, but like maybe don't focus on the number on the scale, because the number doesn't determine whether or not you're healthy. And so, yeah, I don't know. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's, yeah, like how you feel is the best. And it's like you're going to make the most lasting change if it's from a place of love and dignity. And I like what you said about like presenting yourself as well. I even noticed for myself. So this is really weird. And I've actually probably not shared this, but like back when I used to struggle with really bad hormonal acne, back when I was on birth control, which, that's bad, and birth control, vegan, all that, and my skin was really bad. I would go out, like when I'd walk my dog, I would wear just like sweats, whatever, sweatshirt, not brush my hair, not care, because I like already felt ugly. Like I already felt insecure. So I was like, why even care? Versus now I like really feel like even when I like leave my house to walk my dog, I'm like, we're gonna at least put on like a cute fit and like just try to be clean, even if it's like fresh face, whatever, like just look put together. And I've noticed even the way I carry myself and the way I like feel dignified in myself has changed. And I think that's so like when you present yourself, more than even how other people see you, which it will probably shift how people treat you professionally or just in life in general, you feel better in yourself. And I think that's really powerful, because when you feel good, you show up in the world just like differently. And I think that's super, super important if you're tracking with that.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And I think there's a fine line between like trying to keep up with the Joneses and having like the most fashionable outfit and Louis Vuitton and like all of these things that you don't need versus like just like putting something on that you feel confident in. And like it also doesn't mean like having to put on all this makeup. Like I spent a lot of my life not wearing makeup, but I would just like take care of my face and I just would like make my hair nice. And like it doesn't mean you have to like falsely present yourself as a person in this world, but doing things that make you feel good about your appearance and how you're presenting yourself, you know, is a form of self-love. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so and then I kind of brought up birth control for a second, and I would love to hear your thoughts on birth control. Obviously, it's a hot topic, and we are seeing a mass exodus of birth control. But then I feel like the people who are staying on it, or people who are still like advocating for it, are doubling down because they're a little bit like, you know, like when you poke the fire ant nest and like they get really angry. I feel like we're seeing that. What are your thoughts on birth control? Have you ever been on birth control? I'm curious if you have an experience with it.
Yeah, so I was on birth control for about a year when I was just going off to college. You know, my parents didn't want me to be on birth control, but I was like, I'm going to get on birth control. Like this was in my, you know, feminism era. I was like, I'm taking control of my body and I'm going to be on birth control. And, you know, I didn't have a boyfriend or anything. Like, I don't even know why I thought I needed it in the first place. But that's like how psychotic the messaging had got around me of like, you just need to be on birth control because it's going to make your life better and it's going to clear your acne and it's, you know, you're going to feel better and you're going to whatever. And, you know, it just, my personal experience was like, it did not do anything good for me. Like it made me more sluggish, more tired. Like I was constantly bleeding. I was constantly spotting. You know, I didn't feel vital. And yeah, so my personal experience with it, just like no good. And then I stopped it because I was like, this sucks. Like bleeding every day of the month is just, that ain't right. And I know that. And this was even before I was like holistic. I just was like, I know that that's not right. But I would definitely agree that, yeah, the people that are pro birth control, I am really seeing them double down. And I think that this is obviously a very nuanced topic because I have seen the impacts of people that, you know, really have nothing else in their life. They don't have the education, and these women don't know about ovulation, and they don't know how to better protect their life than to be on birth control. And so like I want to hold space for that, you know, like I have seen, you know, inner city issues and it is very real that it's like, okay, I mean, these women know nothing about their cycle and they know nothing about ovulation. And so in some regards, I can see like this is just birth control is the band-aid that we're going to slap on this issue, especially in the era of like Roe v. Wade being overturned. I think a lot of women are up in arms because they aren't empowered and they don't know about their cycle. And so they're just like, everyone needs birth control so that we don't have to deal with this. And I think that this is like, man, I could riff on this forever because there's a lot of issues that are going on with this in the first place. I think that a lot of the messaging around birth control is like, take your power back and get on birth control and you don't have to worry about getting pregnant. And I think like the deeper question of that is like, are you like engaging in procreating activities with people that maybe you shouldn't be, or people that are not fit to be a parent? And I, you know, I don't want to like sex shame or anything like that, but I think like I am openly celibate and I don't see a lot of people in the space talking about that. I think we're in a culture of promiscuity, and I think people get very swept up in that and don't realize like celibacy is an option, and in fact it can be like a very healthy option for yourself, and I'm just not hearing people talk about that. And I think that that's like, you know, when we look at this birth control issue, like there are so many deeper things of like what is going on culturally here in the first place.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it's like beyond even pregnancy, I feel like this culture of promiscuity is leading to like soul ties. It's leading to just like a lustful culture. I don't know if, I mean, I've never watched Love Island, but I've only seen as much as been forced in my face on like Instagram, you know what I mean? Just from like scrolling. And it's like
Yeah.
everywhere you turn, it's like everything's promoting this lustful, promiscuous culture, and it's like hard for people to break out of that matrix and to actually view love for something else. And I think that is even an attack on like traditional masculinity and traditional femininity, because the two balance each other so beautifully, and like now it's turned into just like an orgy fest. And
Exactly. Yeah.
I like it's actually shocking to see, as somebody who's married too, like, so I'm like out of dating culture, out of all that, I'm like saying a prayer for my single friends. I'm like, man, it is tough out there. How do you find somebody who is like truly, I mean, if you're a believer, like a man of God, and who's not going to like pressure you and who's going to honor celibacy, but like, I mean, even if you're not a believer, someone who's just a solid guy, like for you in dating, I don't know if you're dating or not, or like what that like, but like, how do you attract a man of God who is going to have those same values?
That's a great question. And I think that's a question a lot of people should be asking themselves. Personally, I think I just take a very firm stance in who I am and what I want. And so if you're attracting a man of God, I think there's like certain things that will just become apparent, like things like celibacy should be a turn on for him. And like being when you're in integrity, like that will be something that attracts a godly man. And I think, being clear with men from the get-go is really good. Like, I'm looking for a husband. And I think a lot of women are really afraid to say that. I don't know why, because you're going to waste a lot of more time if you can't just be clear from the get-go. But I think like, yeah, women are scared to say like, I'm looking for a husband, I'm looking for a deep love. And because of things like Love Island, where it's like this game, like I don't even understand the games that are played in dating. Like I'm just so like I'm like I don't understand what you're doing right now. Like ghosting, like that is not that is not adult behavior.
Oh, it's disrespectful. It's like it's
Right. Yeah.
disrespectful.
Exactly. And so I think a lot of women like aren't honest about like signs that they're getting from a man. And so I think like the most important thing in attracting a man is like being really firm in like who you are, what you want, what your expectations are. Like your husband is not talking to multiple women. Like he's just not. Like if a man is looking for a wife, like he will be mirroring the same things back to you. And so I truly just believe like if you are on the earnest mission and you are a woman of God, like God will you will the right man will be put into your life by God, and you will just know. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm not married. Like you're the married one here. Like, I don't know if you have anything to say about that, but
I mean, I have so many thoughts. I could do a full podcast on this. But no, and it's interesting to hear from somebody who is single, because I got married at a really young age. So I kind of got like, I feel like I was spared from a lot of the dating world outside of college. Like college was rough, and like high school I dated, but then like I met my husband when I was 20 years old. So really like I feel like I haven't had a lot of the experiences that a lot of other women and men have had. So I'm like, I've always loved hearing from people who are like in the dating world. But no, honestly, like I always tell my friends and like other women, I'm like, the man who is willing to wait to have sex until marriage is not your man. The man who is willing to unfollow the thirst traps because you ask him to, because he's with you now, is not the man. I'm like, your man is one who's already doing those things before you meet. Like, and that's what I'm always like, it shouldn't be like he does these things. He like chooses to not look at other naked women, or chooses to not like engage in like premarital sex if that's something you don't want to do, because of you, out of respect. Like that should be his own personal discipline and personal respect. And so I feel like that's always what I tell people. I'm like, your man should already be doing the things that you're asking him to do. And if he's not your husband. Like, I'm sorry, he's just not.
no, I totally agree with that. That is such a great point. And I
Thank
think
you.
like too, like women forget like you are your own standard. So like if you're already doing these things and you know that it's possible to do them, like of course there's a man out there that is like can do the same. And I think like people are willing, like you said, to kind of like make excuses like, oh, he's doing this for me. Like your man is doing it for himself. I
Yeah,
love that.
exactly. It's like that should be, it's a personal discipline, because you want someone who's just on the same playing field, like equally yoked as you. And as a woman who's a leader, like I'd rather have a man that's like light years ahead of me spiritually than one that I have to lead. Could never
Exactly.
lead.
Yes.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, so before we run out of time, I love to ask the experts, what is your biggest wellness goal right now?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question.
Oh, thank you.
And I was just thinking that this morning, like I need to set new goals. Like it's time for that. I just turned 25 this year, so a quarter century.
Oh,
And I really want this to be like I was listening to, I think Alex Hormozy. I saw a reel that he made, and he basically was like, if you're not fit now, just accept that you will never be, because like life keeps getting busier, and like your hormones keep kind of like going a bit downhill. To like, you've never been younger, you've never had like more time in your life and less responsibilities. So like if you're not fit now, don't expect to be fit when you're 50. And so
Wow.
I really, with this year, want to make this like the fittest year of my life, and like develop my own personal discipline around that. And I do have like, you know, wellness and fitness practices, but I've never really had the mental shift of like, this is my time to get in the best shape of my life. And it doesn't mean to be shredded, because like I don't think women should be super shredded, but just to like really make that a priority before, you know, I don't have a husband, I don't have kids, I don't have like, you know, a lot of things going on in my personal life right now that happen later in your life. And so I'm really just like putting my fitness at the forefront right now.
I love that so much. What a good goal. What is your favorite form of workout?
I have to be honest, it is hot girl walks. Like I
Love
think
it.
steps are so amazing, but I'm my current goal is like 15K steps a day. And then lifting weights 3 times a week. I think lifting weights and walking can be really great for women.
Absolutely. Ugh, love a hot girl walk. Like, obsessed. It's amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing so much wisdom today. I know I learned a lot from you, and I think my audience is just going to eat this up. So, if they're listening and they're like, wait, I love this girl, and if they're already not following you, I think a lot of my followers probably follow you. But if not, like, where can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram at Dr. Marley Quinn. That's also my TikTok handle, but I'm primarily on Instagram, and they can find me at drmarleyquinn.com as well.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. You guys, if you love this episode, make sure to check out Dr. Marley Quinn's amazing just information and education on social media. I know I'm learning so much every day from her, and you're just going to absolutely love what she has out there. If you love this episode, make sure to give us a 5-star review. It's a great way to help this episode grow so we can continue to provide these for free for you guys. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for listening.